Okay, so basically, thank you for letting me be here. I know that it sounds like Mr. White said you guys are a little behind, so thank you for giving me the time to come and demonstrate this to your class. It's a pretty short demo, but I do think it's important because it actually is a skill that you can use not only in chemistry, but you can use it in all your classes, as well as if you plan on going to college, you can use it in your college classes. You can even use it at a technical school if you're learning a new skill, if you're going straight out of high school to get to work. You can use it in learning new skills. So hopefully you'll find it useful today. Basically it's sort of like Cornell Notes, but it is a little different. So we're going to kind of go over those differences. I'm going to map out how to do it. So you'll see on the handout, everyone has the handout. Everybody's looking at this right now. You kind of start off your notes. I know we all are used to putting our title on our notes. So you start with putting the topic. So today's topic, and you should have your own writing paper out if you don't, because Mr. White said he was going to give notes. So I'm going to kind of start you off and then he's going to continue. So your topic today is the QMM model. So the quantum numbers model is basically what you're going over today. So you're going to write at the top of your paper. It can kind of take the place of your title, which is usually the topic, and you're going to write at the top QMM as your topic. Then you start off with an essential question. It's really good to start off your notes kind of thinking, what do I need to know today? What do I need to leave this lecture, this block or this period, what do I need to leave knowing? Because sometimes we just kind of float around and do our notes and we're not really thinking about what we actually need to know. So your essential question today, and I asked Mr. White for this previously, is how are the electron configuration, so listening skills right now, how are the electron configuration of atoms represented in the QMM? I'll say it again. How are the electron configuration of atoms represented in the QMM? And when you are done with this lecture today, you should be able to answer that question. Okay? So how are the electron configuration of atoms represented in the QMM? I'll give you just a few more minutes to finish that up. Okay, for this handout, I'm going to say right now, I don't know how long Mr. White's lecture is. I don't know if they'll all fit on here. So start it off on here, and then if you need more paper, move on to another page. Okay, we're going to go over the evidence first. So focus notes are designed that you don't just write your notes down and then put them in your folder and then they collect dust and you never look at them again. They're designed so that you revisit them 2 days from now, which I know you have class tomorrow, but normally, like if you have block, you only see Mr. White every 2 days. So in 2 days, on your own time, at home, at lunch, whenever you study, you revisit your notes and you do actually it's 4 items of evidence. So we're going to go over those and you actually have freedom of choice here. So I'm going to give you 8 options and you choose 4 of them to do on your own. So you kind of can make the determination in your own mind what works for you, okay? So number 1, number new concepts. I know a lot of teachers already number notes for you, right? Or they bullet point them, or they use Roman numerals. So I find that really useful for myself to organize my notes. And I do it for my students already, so it's pretty easy to do that one for most teachers. Number 2, if you think something's unimportant, cross it out. I'm not a big fan of that one because I think it makes my notes messy and I like a nice clean sheet of notes. But if that's helpful for you and you just want to cross out the stuff that's unimportant to you, you can do that as well. 3, circle key terms. This is huge in science and probably every subject. So key terms, you hear Mr. White say them over and over and over. Probably a key term, probably important. Circle them. When you go back to do your notes, it's way easier to study when you have all those key terms circled. Just like in your textbook, a lot of times your keywords are bolded, so it's really easy to find them. You should do the same thing with your notes. Number 4, identify points of confusion. If you're confused about something, and I know Mr. White and I personally talk really fast. Sometimes you can't get your question in right. I would put a question mark near that, and then when there's time for questions after the lecture, or Mr. White gives you collaboration time to work with a partner, work with your table, maybe that's something you can clarify with peers or the teacher. And that way you don't forget. Okay, number 5, underline, highlight main ideas. I'm gonna have you practice that today. That's why I wanted you to use highlighters. So usually notes are presented in kind of sections, and there's kind of a little subtopic or a main idea for each section. So it's also helpful to organize your notes and highlight those. I'm going to refer to the textbook again. Your textbook is set up that way. There are subheadings in each chapter, and then underneath those are key terms. So you're kind of making like a little mini textbook for your folder, except a summarized version. Number 6, identify information to be used on the test. If the teacher says, this will be on the test, and I know Mr. White does this, this will be on the test, you should take note of that. Star it, use an asterisk, put your happy faces around it, but make sure that you put that somewhere in your notes, indicate that in your notes. Okay, number 7, sometimes it helps to fill in the gaps. So if you just get like a little, a super summarized version, like an outline, sometimes it helps to fill in some words in between, because if you go back and look at your notes and you just have one word there, you might look at it and say, I don't remember what the teacher was talking about. But if you make like a small annotation on the side and fill in the gap, the teacher was talking about this, it helps you when you go back to your notes. And then number 8, create visuals, also huge in science, okay? You may see a graph, right, in the notes. In anatomy, because I teach anatomy, we do a lot of pictures, because if we're learning the body, we might need to see a picture of the part of the body that we're talking about. So it might help you to also put some pictures in there into your notes. You will see kind of the way they're designed is you leave a margin on the left, and then you write your notes on the right. For my class, and you can modify them for each class, I actually have them they do all their notes in their notebook. So I actually have the left side, which is the chunking questions and then annotations, pictures, and the right side's where they do all their notes. I actually think this is a really good way to do it, but if you don't want to do it that way and you just want to put it all on one sheet, some people prefer one sheet because they can just take it with them wherever they go and it's a little easier to manage. So it's really up to you. So you have a lot of freedom with choice with these notes, which I really like because everyone's different, everyone learns differently. And then the chunking questions. I kind of think this is the most important part. So Mr. White goes through your lecture, it's all done, okay? 2 days from now, okay, I know he's going to be going over it again. He's going to be reviewing our quiz today. I probably should go over these notes again. You should, if you're doing these correctly, create chunking questions to the notes. Now, what is a chunking question? So we naturally have figured out over the years with scientific studies and research and evidence that the human brain can absorb more information if we organize it and we chunk it. So you probably didn't even realize this, but even phone numbers are chunked. Do you generally see a phone number, phone numbers are 7 numbers, do you generally see them all written out, 7 numbers, or do you see them generally with a dash in between? Can anyone answer that for me? There's a dash, right? Why do we do that? Because we remember the numbers, 3 numbers, and then 4 numbers. We naturally chunk things in our brain so that we can remember it. And that is what helps you with your notes as well. So he goes through all the notes, and there's kind of, as you go through them and you read back through them, you notice there's kind of 3 different sections that he went over. For each section, let's say there's 3, you would make 1 chunking question for each section. So I'm not talking about 20, 30 chunking questions. I'm talking about just a few for each section. So if there's 3 sections, you would have 3 chunking questions. Now, why do I have to do that? That causes me more work. Why do I need to even worry about that? You are predicting what is going to be assessed. You are predicting what Mr. White is going to want you to know. You're predicting what you're going to see on that test, that quiz, that writing assignment at the end of this chapter. If you write those questions out from the notes, you are going to know what's going to be on the assessment. And so therefore you're predicting and you're studying, and hopefully the goal would be that you know it by the end of the unit, okay? So I have seen, and Arlene can share with you, I have seen huge success with students that struggle with notes once they started doing these, especially because I know that some of you are unable to write and listen at the same time, which is okay. So let's say Mr. White, and I know because I'm friends with him, he talks really fast, and you're writing, and you're writing, and you're writing, and you're writing, and you're just trying to keep up, and then you realize I didn't hear what he said for the last 5 minutes because I was busy writing. So this forces you to go back and look at what was actually said that day, okay? So the chunking questions will be due 2 days after. If you forget, 3 days after, okay? But the point is to revisit them, okay? So that would be your next step after the evidence. And then right before the test, what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna look at my notes, I'm just gonna walk in and go for it. You know that that's not possible in chemistry. There's no way you can just walk in and take the test and be ready. You gotta study. Chemistry is a difficult subject. So right before the test, you need to go back and summarize your notes, okay? So a good summary will answer the question. So a good summary will answer that essential question. So the essential question today, how are the electron configuration of atoms represented in the QMM? Right before the test, if you can't write a paragraph summary answering that question, you're not ready. Okay, so let's say you go to write out that the answer to that question and you realize, I don't know as much as I thought I knew. Then that would be the time to see Mr. White for help, go to tutoring hours, maybe see a fellow student in class or a student that has him in another period and study together, because that is a good indication that you're not ready. So this is kind of a self-checking system so that someone's not always over your back saying, did you do this, did you do this, did you do this? It's a way for you to prepare yourself and really prepare yourself for beyond high school. Because let's face it, once you get beyond high school, you are your own indicator of success. There isn't a teacher that's going to be forcing you to do anything. In fact, in college, they don't even care if you show up because you're paying to be there. So it's really all on your shoulders. So use the time now to develop these skills so that later, you know, you're ready. At this time, I kind of want you to practice. So I'm gonna ask if Mr. White can lecture a little bit, and then maybe we'll pause and kind of go back over how to do the evidence, and then we'll be done with this demo, if that's okay.
It's how we got to the QMM. So first Thomson. Remember, J.J. Thomson did what? Proved that atoms have a positive part and a negative part. But he was the one who thought they were solid. Rutherford was smart enough, so he never really said anything wrong. He said atoms are most empty space, small, solid, positive, nuclear. So we're going to do kind of two things at once right now. So this guy Bohr, and in those days, scientists were not specialized. So Bohr is part chemist, part physicist.
My notes already look like this. I don't know what yours look like. That's okay if you did them a little differently. I just kind of wanted to share with you. I really liked, and some of you even repeated it back to him, his analogy of sand at the chain link fence. So I actually wrote it in the margin, because to me, that's something, for me personally, that would help me remember what he was talking about. When he was talking about Rutherford, basically. So I actually put a line to Rutherford so that I remember that atoms are mostly empty space and the electrons are outside. I really liked his analogy about going up the stairs, and that you can't go up 2.5 stairs. And then also going back down, that when an electron jumps down, energy is lost. So I wrote in my margin, I actually created little stairs. in my margin, and I wrote that on the side. Now, I was actively engaged in what he was saying. This was like me, you know, really furiously writing because I didn't want to miss a word that he said. I also circled key terms in my evidence. That's one of my favorite things to do. I circled ground state. I circled excited. I circled quanta because I felt like those were key terms that when I go back to study my notes, that I really should know. Main ideas, probably you would have to go back and do those on your own. I would think main ideas right now, because he's talking about 3 people. He's talking about Thompson, Rutherford, and Bohr. Maybe main ideas would be scientific findings or science of scientists.
The fourth one is the QMM. So those
right.
3 guys, before we started the QMM, those 3 guys were the precursors.
Okay.
To QMM.
Right, so, and we do everything like that in science. We kind of give you the back history a little bit, and then the actual model, the actual findings. So for my main idea, I would have put scientific findings, because to me, that's what Mr. White is telling you. He's telling you, these are the scientific findings, and then this is where this model came from. So that's what I would do for a main idea. Chunking questions, you wouldn't do a couple days from now, so kind of just remind you of that. So don't worry about that. As you're going through the notes, start circling, start annotating in the margin, draw little pictures that might help you. And I know a lot of people, it does help to have a visual. And that's kind of where we're going with this. That's the end of the demonstration, but thank you for letting me come. And I actually made enough handouts for all your classes. So.